This is part two of my two-part talk with Terry from the Build My Online Store podcast. And this episode is all about how to make your first $1,000. And in this particular part two, we talk about marketing options. And at first, we talk about the free marketing options. As a lot of new entrepreneurs, that's probably the route that they prefer to take. But we also go into the paid marketing options, which I'm actually a huge fan of. Next week, I'm going to have Andrew on from E-commerce Fuel. We're going to talk about how to make your next $100,000. And the week after that, I'm going to have Eric from Beard Brand come on and talk about how to make your first $1,000,000. And both those episodes coming up are so awesome. I was so happy to have them on. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to read a story, and it's about Andrew Carnegie and his life. He started with nothing and ended up becoming one of the richest men to ever live on earth. And it's very inspirational because if he can do it, you can do it, and there's really no excuse why you can't do something really big with your life. So make sure you stick around till the end for that story, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of a juice for this week. Now, let's get into part two with Terry. And I think if you're starting out a business, a lot of people kind of want to go with the free marketing options. People don't want to necessarily spend money right out the gate, which I don't necessarily believe is the correct way. I do believe if you really believe in your product, you should do some paid advertising, but free marketing is a great tool. And one of the tips I have is start your own blog. Start a blog right out of the get-go, and you can do something about related to the field, something that those people in your demographic would be interested in. And a tactic that I actually use for my website is interviewing my customers. I figured out who my most important customers are, and they are dance studio owners because they have access to an entire dance studio worth of people that need dance clothing. And I realized, okay, how can I make them happy? Well, if I interview them on our blog, it's giving them validation. Plus, hopefully, I can get a link back from my site, from their site to my site, which has some search engine optimizations potential. For those people that don't know what that means, it means getting your site to the top of Google, which everybody wants to do. And that's another big reason to have a blog is it gets you higher up on Google. When you have more content and more links, you're going to get higher up on Google.
And
And yeah.
yeah, one thing useful is that people are always looking for validation for what they do. It's a very kind of human nature type of thing. So how can you give someone that makes them feel good? And a lot of ways to do that is to interview them because, if you want to just talk to someone for an hour, it's like, hey, can I talk to you for coffee? It's like, like who are
Mm.
you? Why should I meet you? When am I gonna get out of this? Are you gonna be some crazy guy on the internet? But it's like, hey, what if I interview you for my show? You're like, oh, there's suddenly it's like the perspective is different because you're getting featured, right? So
Is
it's
it?
kind of a yeah,
Yeah.
go
Is,
ahead.
is that part of the reason you started the podcast?
A little bit, yeah. It was just to get like basically free consulting for some people, and I still do that when I need certain information from some guests. Like if I'm doing a Kickstarter, I'll see who done a Kickstarter really well, and be, hey, can you want to talk about your Kickstarter? And then I can ask my own questions that are kind of more useful to me, but also for the audience too, right? So, and also that you can build a relationship with either dance instructors or people that have access to your customers. And then when you have that relationship, then you can leverage things in the future too. So I think it's important to see blogging or content not just as making content for content's sake to rank in Google, but it's also to like a relationship builder down the road because that's where the real leverage is at as you kind of do these things in next couple of years.
I didn't have it written down because I actually made this list before I started podcasting. But I think not just a blog, but podcasting is a great way to do it, like you were saying. And you're right. It's amazing the people that will sit down for an hour and talk with me. Like people that I would never ever be able to say, "Hey, do you mind Skyping with me for an hour?" Like in one of the later episodes for this series on how to build an online store, I have Eric from Beard Brand, and he's a guy. He did $400,000 in revenue last month, and he's willing to sit
Yeah.
for an hour and talk with me. In what world does that happen where you don't have a podcast? It doesn't happen unless you can provide some value back.
Yeah, exactly. And I think these things it positions you as an industry leader too, in the sense that if you have the dance studio podcast and you talk to all the top 10 dance instructors in the country, they'll be like, whoa, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And then they go, oh, by the way, he has a website called bdancer.com. All right, let's go buy from him. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have the content to really pitch your products. It's more like a kind of like a attraction tool that gets people to come in. And then when they come in, you have like an upsell down the line too. So
Yeah, and another point on the blog, and you might think this is an overused tactic, but it works, and that's to create top whatever lists. I created,
yeah.
or actually, someone from my blog created a top 50 list of the top 50 dance studios in the United States. And the goal from the outset, I had this idea, and I'm like, we're going to do this, and it's going to go viral. And I was right. In about a week and a half or so, 20,000 people came to my blog to look at this article. And it was a lot of times people are like, oh, well, going viral is, it's very rare, whatever. But you can kind of plan for it. I basically had 50 people that I was going to say, you're freaking amazing. And those people want to share that with, and they have a big network. They want to share it with their entire network. And their entire network came to my website. And to be fair, it did probably create a little bit of controversy because it's like, oh, well, I'm better than this studio. And people wanted to share the word, but creating.
But that's good though, because people are talking about it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
controversy is good as long as they spell your name right. That's what my
Yeah,
old boss told me once.
that's great tip.
Yeah,
And
but I
but
think this works when your industry isn't that keen on kind of like promotional posts like this, because people in like travel blogging space or like internet marketing or business, like they know that, they're doing this to leverage your traffic when you share it,
sure.
right? But it still feels good though when I get featured. Oh, cool! Like I don't share it often as now, but I thought, oh, it makes me feel good. And
Well,
it was like Forbes.com. I'll be, oh hell yeah, I'm on Forbes, right?
yeah, but a lot of websites, even like relatively decent sized blogs, have like featured in the news, like a page that you click on and it shows all the different articles and stuff they've been featured in. And if nothing else, it can't hurt. I doubt you've ever been featured in an article and afterwards you felt worse about that person. You never been like, you put me, in a top 10 list of best entrepreneurs, podcasts, whatever. Screw you. No, afterwards you're probably at least a little bit like, oh, okay, that's cool. Either you're neutral or you're like, hey, who is this person? That was kind of nice.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get on people's radars when you do this, because hey, who's this guy that put me on this list? It makes me feel good, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm not saying, if you put Jay-Z on a list, it's not going to make a difference. But if you put
yeah,
people that
exactly.
are working hard and do need some recognition, especially people I find that aren't extremely computer savvy, like you said, people that don't know that this is somewhat of a tactic to get traffic and links to your website, they're usually pretty grateful about it.
Yeah, like we had a friend who started a stem cell podcast,
Hmm.
and he got a sponsorship within like 2 months for like 50K from some pharmaceutical company that sells equipment. So you never know what niche you get into. Make sure you can go to iTunes or Stitcher, see what's on there in your niche, and then if there's no one doing it, hey, maybe you should start one.
Yeah. So
And they have like all these different podcast spots. They have like wrestling podcasts, history podcasts, like photography, wine, writing, things like that. Like anything in the world, you can pretty much find now. And if there's not, there's a gap you can fill. Because if you think about it, in the world, like in 5 years, like 2/3 of the world is going to have a smartphone, right? If you look at like the way computers came first, only big companies could afford it, like IBM, Microsoft, only they could afford these servers and mainframes. But then when the laptops came out, families that kind of had some income can afford it. But when you look at small phones, like in 3 years, it's going to be so cheap that anyone in the world can have a phone. So you're going to make sure that you're plugged into that space too, either through your content, your website, and your marketing.
And a great tip if you're not sure whether you want to start a store or not, or what kind of store you want, start a blog or start a podcast, get a following, and then by the time you're ready to release something, you already have a couple thousand people that are interested in what you're saying. Part of the reason I started this podcast is I have an idea of, I think talked about it on the Build My Online Store podcast. It's basically a platform for free education online. And part of the reason I started this is I want people that are interested in learning things, and I'm hoping by the time I launch that, I'll have a couple thousand people that are interested that'll want to go sign up for it. So have content out there, get a little bit of a following. But to completely shift gears, one of the other marketing tools that I recommend is old-fashioned methods like emailing people or calling people or being in person. And this is a way that I first kind of started advertising and doing some marketing for my business. I actually sent out lots of emails to people, basically telling them about our product. The first round, I sent out about 1,500 or so emails saying, hey, and of course this wasn't spam, I did it individually, but I sent out like a 25% off coupon to see how it would work, and it did awful. No one bought anything. Now, here is where I came up with the idea of, hey, instead of offering them a coupon, I'm going to feature them on my website. And the funny thing is, way more bought when I talked about them on my website versus saying 25% off. So they had to pay more money, but they didn't care because it didn't feel spammy to them.
And because there's no emotional link to them when you just ask to send them a coupon, right?
Yeah. They're like, oh, someone that wants money from me. They don't see it as, oh, cool, I get 25% off. They see it as, oh, I got to spend money with you? Like, you're asking me for cash? No, get out of here.
Yeah, like if you dig deeper into like sales books, psychology, like there's always some emotional thing that drives people, whether that's like, say they buy a pizza or something like there's always some deep level emotion that you want to drill down to. And there's something I can send you later. I think there's a book called All Marketers Are Liars by Seth Godin. You should read that. It really tells you how to drill down to different emotions based on the different categories that make people feel certain ways too. So, because it's like when someone hits you in the car, you get an accident, it's the same anger you feel when you get ripped off, right? But the
Hmm.
context is different too, and how do you play into that in your marketing? But I guess going back before we get off topic, like we were talking about old school marketing, like email calling in person. Like there's an article by Paul Graham. He says do things that don't scale, right? So basically, this means hitting the pavement, talking to people, things like that. So our roommate is trying to start kind of like a travel tour thing, and we told her like, hey, you need a website, but what you should be doing is going out to backpackers and talking to them in hostels, in hotels, and see what people think. Because then when you get that feedback, you can change it into your marketing copy, into your package, your pricing, things like that. And even if you look at like big companies now, like Airbnb, the kind of hotel slash home rental thing, they actually went out to different houses and signed people up manually door to door before they had this app because it was a supply and demand equation, right? Like, how do you get people to rent places when you don't have supply? But then, how do you get people to sign up when there's no users? So they just went door to door to sign up people on Airbnb and to put their houses on. And they even said, "Hey, we'll take free pictures for you, so you don't have to write the listing. Like, you just come up with some copy, and we'll do it all for you." And that's how they kind of got started early on. And even like Tinder, like the dating app where you can swipe left and right, like they started out going to college campuses and signing up people in sorority. So they signed up girls first because of supply. It's a chicken and egg thing too, right?
Yeah.
You don't. No one wants to go on an app with a bunch of guys, right? And guys will go to apps if there's a bunch of girls. So they went up. So I think one of the co-founders went to her college and signed up a bunch of girls in her sorority. Like went to like five or six, and then she went to the fraternities. Like, hey, we have all these girls signed up. Do you guys want to sign up? And they're like, yes. And then the ecosystem kind of grows from there, right? So when it comes to like starting out, like sometimes you just have to do these kind of grunt work things and finding those early adopters that you can then scale into something else.
Yeah, this was a problem I ran into a lot. I didn't want to do things that didn't quote unquote scale, but my ultimate success came when I started doing that. When I started doing things that, all right, you need to do this, the grunt work basically, one time to really figure things out. And then once you get that going, once you get a little bit of a system going, you can kind of work more on the scaling features. But I love those examples. I think those are really great examples. A lot of people don't want to actually, they want to sit behind their computer and do all the work there. But it's like, you know what? Going to a college campus and signing up sorority girls, which actually that sounds like a lot of fun, or,
Yeah,
doing pictures for Airbnb. And the Airbnb story, one of the things I heard is even the people that they had on there, their photos were really bad. They would
yeah,
take like photos of the room that made it look like shady, like houses. They're like, oh, I'm gonna stay with this guy's house. Like, no, I'm gonna get
yeah,
murdered.
yeah. Well, one thing you realize is that like the phone, the internet, telegraph, they're all just means of communication, right? And one of them just makes it more efficient than the other. So the internet is like one of the most efficient tools to talk to someone, right? Like you're in the US, we've actually never met before, but we're talking on Skype now. Whereas I could have flown to the US, had you met for coffee, like there's different inefficiencies in meeting people, right? And one thing in my old job, my boss always told me was that like a phone call is 1,000 better times better than an email,
Hmm.
and then an in-person meeting is 1,000 times better than a phone call, right? So there's different levels of communication with people, and usually starting out, you just have to do that person-to-person thing before you can scale it into something more efficient, like the internet or email or chat or WhatsApp, things like that.
Yeah, when you send an email, there is a much smaller percentage chance than when you call that you'll get a response. Because when you send an email, there's like a blank email to a person you don't know, there's probably about a 10% chance that they'll respond, assuming you're coming from like a marketing type standpoint, probably even less. But when you make a call, there's pretty much a 100% chance if they answer that, if they actually are around and able to answer that phone, that you'll get a chance to speak with them. And then if you're in person, it's kind of, if you can, convey a good feeling to them and say like, hey, I'm actually a good person, I'm not just trying to take your money. People like that. People are going to check out your website or check out what you're doing. And I think this is something that, once again, I think most people that are want to become entrepreneurs or online marketers, they want to stand behind their computer because it's safe. I knew it took a lot of work for me to finally like call the first dance studio owner, and I still haven't been in person yet, which is kind of sad to say now that we're talking about
Yeah.
that.
And
That's
it's a ninja tool because it's so much rarer to see that these days, right? It's everyone's behind a computer, behind a phone, that when you actually call someone or show up to
yeah.
meet them, you're just like, whoa, like I'm blown away. I can't believe this, right? And because people aren't willing to do that, you should use that to your advantage to actually just hunker down, get over yourself, put your ego away, and just put yourself out there.
Yeah, and you don't have to be salesy about it, because when I was talking earlier about the emailing or calling or being there in person, I think it kind of brought up some imagery of like, oh, a door-to-door salesman. But you don't have to do that. You can go, and my plan is to go to dance studios and just be like, hey, I don't know if you guys have heard about us, but like, here's a catalog with some of the stuff we have. Like, if you're interested, check out the website. If you're not, you don't have to. But do you mind if I leave this here with the magazines you have in the waiting room? They're they'd be extremely rude, especially if I go there smiling and being a nice person, to say, no, you can't leave your beautiful catalog with all this amazing dance clothing in our shop. That'd be a pretty rude thing to say. But if I were to go in there and say like, hey, will you buy this right now? They would definitely kick me out. So you don't have to
Yeah,
be salesy about it.
and the power when you meet people like that is you can say, hey, well, if they say no, you say, well, why? Can I understand? Like, you just be a very genuine way, like, hey, is there something I did wrong, or is there a policy about this? And then you can find out more information to like recycle and like make your approach better too for the next person.
That's how I got my first real job, actually. So right
Yeah.
out of college, I actually got an amazing job making a good amount of money and traveling all over the world. And it's all because I got, long story short, I met with someone from the company, and they said, you're perfect for the job. You're definitely going to get first round interview. And I got rejected for the first round interview. And I was pretty sad. I was like, what did I do wrong? So I emailed the person that I talked to, and I'm like, hey, what could I improve upon? Is the way I phrase it. I'm like, what could I improve upon in my resume? Or like, I didn't say what's wrong with my resume, but that was the general tone. It's like, what is wrong with the resume that I can improve, or is there some way that I can convey myself better in person? And she wrote me a long message back, basically saying, you know what? I'm gonna get you a first round interview, but here are some things that you can improve about your resume for next time. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I got the first round interview. I showed up. A high level executive met me at a Starbucks. It was like the most unformal interview ever. And at the end of the interview, he's like, I like you. You're going to get a second round interview. And the second round interview, I nailed it. So I eventually got the job. But if I never would have sent that email, if I would have just accepted that defeat of not getting the job, I would not have had a job. So,
Yeah, and even at my old job, I used to hire maybe 10 interns at once for the summers, and no one would come back and say, "Hey, why didn't I get this?" or "Can you tell me where I can improve?" And I think it's a lot of that is putting your ego aside and being like, "Hey, all right, it's happened, but how do this not happen next time?" And this will be like, "Oh, those guys, they're such an asshole. They don't want me. Fuck them." Right?
yeah.
That's like the loser way to think about things.
Absolutely. So let's get back onto the marketing, the free marketing options. And another example I have is YouTube. And YouTube is an extremely powerful tool. The statistic I've heard is that it's the second largest search engine. So it goes Google, YouTube, and then I believe Bing. So it's the second largest, like the most searches are done with it, but about somewhere around 1,000th of the content. So if you look at how many websites there are, there's I don't know the number, but let's just say a trillion. There's much more than that. But if there was a trillion websites, there's only a billion YouTube videos. So there's 1,000th as many YouTube videos as there are websites, which means there's about as much traffic and way less competition. So have you done YouTube?
I used to, but I think YouTube is one of those things where it's resource intensive in terms of time, money, and energy. And to make something quality, it actually has barriers to entry that is good and bad because it keeps people from, getting into the market, but it also means that you have to do more work and to see the long tail effort come in too. So I think some guys that do it really good. I think Beard Brand does it really good. If you when you talk to Eric, he does more like a video blog slash product review when he does YouTube. And over time, I think he's done it for about 2 years now. He has like 30,000 people on the channel, and I think that's when you start getting the ROIs over the long term when you have that following, whether it's through a blog, podcast, or YouTube channel. I think that's kind of where you get it in the end. And I think YouTube is just a place where there's a lot more front load effort than say a podcast or a blog, but down the line, like you can't copy someone that has video because you don't look like them, right? And your design things that go into the video, the sound, the quality, the production is so unique that if you can build that up, it's really like a defensible thing you can have as a marketing tool.
So two things. I guess the first thing is I did an episode. I don't know if you ever got a chance to listen to it with his name's Adam from Epic Wildlife. He has a YouTube channel. He makes I don't know how much money, but enough money to live very well passively. And in that episode, one of the first things that he said is, you know what, if you're considering doing a YouTube channel, do it right now. Film a video using your iPhone. If you want to go later, you can delete it. And I love that because the videos don't have to be perfect right out the gate. And that's where I kind of disagree with what you said. I think you can eventually buy better equipment. It's okay. Like if you look at, I have some YouTube videos up that are for our website, the B Dancewear, that aren't great, but it's kind of more taking those steps forward. And I recommend if you're thinking about doing YouTube, listen to that episode because he has some great tips, but you can do your first video with an iPhone. So I don't know if I fully agree with you on this.
Yeah, that's true. And I think people on YouTube expect that it's YouTube. It's not like television
Hmm.
thing, but like over the long term, you certainly want to upgrade as you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I mean, I can show you videos that are done with someone's webcam and the guy has millions of views. There's a ton of those, on
Yeah.
YouTube.
But I think on a broader basis, putting yourself in front of the camera versus on a podcast versus on a blog, there's different levels of comfort that you have to push. And I think video still has the highest one, whether that's creating infographics or other forms of content creation. That kind of what I was shooting at. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think it makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So basically, my recommendation is try out YouTube especially if you have a decent idea. There's a lot of potential there. I've even thought about doing a YouTube channel purely as a money-making mechanism, but let's skip that for now. Uh,
Yeah, we'll save that for another day.
exactly. Another
Yeah.
one I have is long tail type articles. And is this something you've done? So first, actually, for people that don't know, long tail keywords are search terms. So what people type into Google, and it's usually what makes them long tail is it's a couple different words. So for instance, a regular search keyword would be jazz pants, using my company as an example. But a long tail search term would be uh, black lycra jazz pants. That's a longer term, that's a lot more specific. And the idea behind it is you write an article that's specifically about something that only a small amount of people search for. But when they're searching for that, they'll come to your article. So I might write an article about black lycra jazz pants because there's not a lot of material out there about it. I really wouldn't because that's a really boring topic. But the idea is to have something extremely specific that Google says, hey, this is exactly related to what this person is searching for. And you can use the keyword tool in Google to figure out exactly how many searches that gets. And then you can put that into Google and see what the competition's like. So is this something you've used or not really?
No, but I've seen someone use this in a really ninja way where they do comparison shopping. So, for example, B dancewear versus A dancewear jazz pants, right? Because usually when you buy something expensive, you'll compare different brands and you'll just type it in, like, Tumi versus Timbuktu in Google. And there were a couple of guys I saw that actually made this their SEO strategy where they had basically went to the top 20 competitors in the market and they made an article each of like their brand versus the other brand. And then basically they would just SEO optimize everything on the on page, off page. It was basically just a comparison chart. It was like a review page. And then they linked everything to back to their products too on their own site. And they were basically ranking for people's brand without them actually knowing it. Like you search this one brand, I don't want to tell who it is, but
Yeah.
the fourth result is them versus a competitor. And the competitor put it on there just on purpose so they could rank for their own brand too.
That's interesting. And I've heard about that. And another tip I'd recommend if you're thinking about that is try to get an affiliate link for your competitor so you can make money even if they end up going to your competitor. And once again, for people that don't know what an affiliate link is, it's basically a link that gives you credit for the sale and that company will pay you.
Yeah, it's like a referral fee basically, but it's in a link, and then they can track how many hits, how many people buy from coming through your link. And basically, the link will be tagged in the system that they know that it's coming from Travis, Terry, or whoever when you send traffic there.
And a lot of people do articles like that where they don't own any of the products, but they make money no matter what product somebody buys. So there's really no reason not to do it with your own product, but then have your competitors. If someone uses your competitors, you can still make money from them.
Yeah, like there's some people that make Amazon money off this, right? They have like a
Yeah.
review site, they review baby strollers, but then when you click buy, it goes to Amazon, but that was actually an affiliate link where they get like 4% off a $300 baby stroller. And it's like 20 bucks or something like that. And they just make their living like that too. So that's just one way to look into it. But in terms of like scaling, it's not really scalable in the sense that you need to have so many of these sites with so much traffic that you might as well build your own thing or start your own store, I think, in my view.
Yeah, I there's actually a decent amount of people I thought that, well, not a decent amount, but that their whole the whole way they make money I thought was off the affiliate sales. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. It's certainly if you have the right items that have the right price point and the commission percentage. But in the end, you're just being an agent in the middle, right? So
Sure. No,
if
I
Amazon
agree.
ever changes, if Amazon changes their terms, they reduce it to 1%. Well, you just got your income sliced by like 75%, right? So
You know, something I want to add is I think a lot of people don't realize when you click on a product and you're taken to Amazon that they are getting an affiliate fee. And the second thing is the entire internet, it seems like, is made to make money. And I never really realized this until I started selling things. I always looked at like those comparison shopping like guides and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well this is a good honest answer. It's unbiased." 9 times out of 10, I feel like that the number one, there's the reason it's number one is because they get a slightly better affiliate fee or
yeah.
whatever. So marketing really opens up your eyes to what's on the internet. A lot of it's
It's
there to make money.
it's like when you find those top 10 hosting pages, top 10 shopping carts, top 10 whatever, it's all like affiliate links in there. Or best review 2014, it's all affiliate links there. So over time you'll learn this, but right now it's kind of it might not be clear to you yet.
Yeah. So you also had in the show notes offline events. What are you talking about with this?
So offline events, if you know where your customer's at, they'll usually go to certain things. Like so, say you're selling food or something. Like you want to sell cookies, maybe you can go to the local, farmers market and set up a booth and just start seeing what people what they're willing to buy, what they aren't willing to buy, the feedback and things like that, right? It's like going back to doing things that don't scale, like Airbnb, going to people's houses, Tinder, going to sororities. Like you can do this thing when you're offline too. Like if you're selling gym pants, see if there's a yoga instructor or a gym that can let you go there to do a demo one day, right? So
Hmm.
you don't always have to think online when you're starting out. You certainly want to nail it down offline first because online is just the efficiency tool, right? If you can figure it out offline, you bring it online. It's certainly a lot scales a lot faster than trying to do it the other way around, I think.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people use meetup.com for this kind of idea. They'll have usually they'll do it more for consulting work. For instance, I go to an SEO meetup, and when I go to the SEO meetup, the guy doesn't say it like blatantly, but he offers SEO consultation services. And what better way to find people that are willing to spend money on SEO than having a meetup and saying, "Hey, are you interested in learning?" Like he does basic SEO. He's like, "Learn basic SEO." Well, the people that need to learn basic SEO are probably the people that are really confused by it and they don't know a lot about it. Plus, then you're up there standing and talking like an expert, and they're going to come to you and be like, "Hey, I want your help."
Yeah, and it also filters people to who you want, right? Because they've already qualified themselves to be like, hey, I am interested in this, so let's meet up. Instead of going to cold calling 1,000 people and things like that too.
And what he told me was, look, at people that don't know what SEO is, they're not going to be willing to spend the money that I charge for it because SEO to do it properly is not cheap. And
Yeah,
he knew that someone that doesn't know what that is, it's like they're going to be like, "Oh, why am I spending, $1,000 a week or whatever kind of crazy fees he charges?" So you want qualified people.
yeah, exactly.
Any other offline events that you've like would recommend or just throw
Gosh,
your
yeah,
own?
yeah. Throw your own. Why not, right? Go to meetup.com and see who comes up. And like
Yeah.
it's free to use, right? So, but the way to do it is not to say, hey, I'm selling this, is to like position it that, hey, if you're selling gym clothes, hey, here's a way to do this, like 10 ways to kind of, I don't know, juice healthier or something like that. And then you go, oh, yeah, by the way, we're brought to you by this store.
Yeah, and a lot of people are much more willing to buy from friends than they are from some guy that's trying to pitch them the whole time. That's why like Tupperwares, like you hear about the
Yeah,
Tupperware parties. There's a reason those work. It's because you're their friend already.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So any other free marketing tips before we get into the paid marketing you have?
There's a bunch, but we just go into paid because we can go on forever,
I
right?
gotcha. Okay, so let's go into paid marketing. And do you do any kind of paid marketing for Baller Leather?
Some Facebook ads, and that's it.
How have the Facebook ads worked out for you?
Not bad. It's most I do CPC. I think conversion a little low, but I don't know. I just gotta tweak it out. But I'm doing the Kickstarter now, so I've been putting that on the back end, basically.
All right, so let's get into Facebook ads first then. So, Facebook ads, for people that don't know, you can specify very specific demographics. So you can say, I only want to advertise to people who are 18 to 25 years old that like entrepreneurship, that also already like my competing podcast. If you were to hypothetically do it for your podcast, which I don't know if I recommend doing that, that already like the competing podcast and whatever. So for my dance clothing company, what I do is moms age 45 to 55 that have a daughter that like my competitors that and you can that only make over $100,000 or over $80,000 a year, and it lets you do that. And you've probably seen these ads. They come up in your news feed a lot of time, or they're on the right sidebar. Now there's a
Yeah.
couple different types too. So you use the straight click to your website type.
Yep. But I think before we get into this, is that you want to understand that paid marketing is that if I give you, if you give me 10 cents and I give you back $1, would you keep doing that?
Yes.
Yes, exactly, right. So that's what paid advertising is. The
Is,
thing
is
is,
this is this a deal? Because I'm down for this.
yeah, because that's how it works, right? You put nickels in, and like quarter comes out, right? If it's actually working right. The thing is, getting your math down to that equation is what takes time to figure out too. So I think paid marketing, when you think about, I don't want to spend money on paid marketing, is because you don't see the ROI on it yet. Because if you knew that every dollar you put in gives you $10, you would do that. You would throw $10,000 at it until you had no more money to throw at it, right? So I think the mindset on paid advertising is kind of that first, but then you also have different channels, either through Facebook, AdWords, or Google that we're going into. And we kind of got a little ahead. We kind of got ahead of ourselves here, but since we're in Facebook, basically Facebook, like Travis says, you can get really, really specific on the targeting, even to where people check in, either the travelers, business travelers, or like locations, things like that, like their relationship status, single, divorced. It's complicated. I don't know what you can do there, but there's a lot of things you can do with Facebook.
You could do relationship consulting or something like that. The people that say it's complicated. Another thing, actually, so I guess I want to talk about with paid marketing is that when I say paid marketing, I'm only talking about the online type stuff. I don't recommend, at least especially when you're starting out, doing billboards or doing advertisements in magazines. And the reason is you can't track that nearly as well. And for people that don't know, and I can't believe I didn't add this in there, you need to have Google Analytics. The first thing I recommend if you have an online store is sign up for Google Analytics, install it in your store, and add the e-commerce feature. And what that does is it allows you to basically see how people interact with your website. It allows you to see where people are coming from. So are they coming from, are they just putting in your URL? Are they coming from Google? Are they coming from these Facebook ads? And the good thing is when you tie this with Facebook ads or the other methods we're going to talk about in just a second, what happens is you're able to see, okay, this person came from a Facebook ad and they spent this much time on my website and they bought something or they didn't buy something. And you're able to see, is this paying off? And a lot of people, I think, when they first start off, don't use analytics, and it's like figuring everything out in the dark. You have no idea what's going on. So get your analytics.
Yeah, the beauty with paid ads is that you see everything if you're tracking it right, from like the number of impressions, number of clicks, to the traffic that goes to your site, to the conversions, to like the funnel. It's very, very transparent versus like say blogging or YouTubing where it takes time for people to view you, to go to your site. Like the front end takes a lot longer than paid ads, where as soon as you have people going there, you can see the data
Yeah.
right away too.
And when using Google Analytics, if someone puts your website in like to the regular bar and comes to your website, you have no idea how they found out about you. The cool thing with paid ads is you know right away this person came from Facebook and they're of this demographic and they have this likelihood of buying. So maybe if every one out of every 10 people that come from Facebook buys your $100 product and it only costs you $10 to get those people from Facebook to your website, kind of going to your point earlier, then that's something you want to scale up. You want to spend more money into it. So that's the power that is paid marketing.
Yeah, and I think the thing that for someone starting out is that there's usually like three main types. Like there's AdWords, where you bid on keywords in Google, like Facebook ads we talked about, and also product listing ads, where it's like basically Google Shopping. When you type in like say iPhone 6 or whatever case, and the picture shows up, that's the product listing ad. And I think when someone's starting out, probably Facebook ads is a great way to test just your demographics on a more precise scale and a cheaper scale rather than going to AdWords because AdWords is generally more expensive and it's just text. So if you have something really image based, Facebook prop ads is probably a way to start, or even Pinterest because it's a new platform and no everyone's still trying to figure it out. But I think that before we get too advanced, it's just letting people know what platform is the right one for you if you're starting out. Because I think if you try to do everything at once, you're not going to do anything, especially too.
So two things I want to add about Facebook ads, and next let's move on to AdWords. But the first thing, actually, a question for you. So a lot of times with Facebook ads, you have to have a display, like a picture. Where do you get your pictures from? Do you make them yourself,
Yeah,
or
I use my own product photos basically, or like
and
lifestyle photos. So there's lifestyle photos or product photos that you should choose. Usually, lifestyle photos make more sense because when you're on Facebook, you're in a browsing mode. You're not shopping. So when you see a product photo, that's like a vanilla white background. It's kind of like, well, why is this my newsfeed?
and something that's interesting about Facebook ads is that only 20% of the picture can have text. So the image is much more powerful than the text. So you want to pick your words very carefully. And the second thing I wanted to add about Facebook ads is you can get likes. You can spend the money to get the likes. And a way that I found to do it extremely cheaply is to advertise on mobile phones because it seems like less people are advertising to mobile phones than on computers. And get very, very specific with your targeting. I mean, try to get it down to 1,000 people if you can, whatever. You want it so the percentage of those people that are going to click through to your website or like your page is really high. You want it to be as high as possible. And I'll also add that even if you have people coming to your website, they can still click to like your website. And what I wanted to add actually is basically that if you get, let's say, 2,000 people to like your website, then when you post on Facebook, or sorry, if you like your Facebook fan page, when you post on Facebook, that gets displayed in a certain percentage of those 2,000 people's feed. So paying for likes is not a waste of money if you do it properly, if you really highly select your people, because those people are going to get advertised to every time you make a post from that point on.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also something called remarketing, but that's for another topic.
Yeah,
When you're
that's
actually
more
set up.
advanced, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
let's get into AdWords. And so have you used AdWords at all, or?
Nope, not yet. But I know AdWords is a great way to filter out SEO keywords in the sense that you test your traffic with AdWords and then you figure out what to rank for on the SEO side. Like when you're making blog articles through AdWords testing. So this is kind of more your space since I don't really do it much. So, you
Sure.
know,
I'll talk a little bit on it then. Basically, for people that don't know what AdWords are, just backing up a little bit, when you search something in Google, you'll see these ads at the top. Well, people pay for those, and the reason they're willing to pay for them is they advertise based on what words you type in. So, using my website as an example, once again, someone typing in, dance pants, or let's use the example buy dance pants. Someone typing in buy dance pants is someone looking to spend money to buy a pair of dance pants. So I want to advertise to those people. I'm willing to spend $1 to get those people to my website because hopefully they're going to make a $33 purchase or whatever it is. And so you're able to pick the specific AdWords or specific keywords, and then with those keywords you're able to say exactly what the text on your ad is going to be. And so for instance, if I were to use dance pants in the actual ad, I'd want to make sure and say something like buy dance pants now and then have some information about how high quality they are or whatever. Now, another way to look at AdWords is to get extremely specific. So a lot of people are probably advertising for ByteDance pants, and the way it works is you spend 1 cent more than your competitor. So if your competitor says I'm willing to spend $1, and you say I'm willing to spend $1.50, well, you'd only spend $1 and 1 cent because it's 1 cent more than him. Now, a keyword like ByteDance pants is probably going to be pretty expensive. So the key is to find words that people aren't thinking about, and part of that's really knowing your demographic. So one thing that I thought about for me is I'm going to get very specific. I'm going to say buy blue dance pants or buy ivory dance pants because, truth is we're the only people that sell ivory dance pants, and
Yeah.
I want those people to come to my website. So if we're the only people that sell ivory dance pants, buy ivory dance pants. It might only get 5 people to my website a month, but those 5 people are super highly qualified to buy something. So you
Yeah.
should start using AdWords. And I'll throw in one last quick tidbit, little hint. There's broad match, exact match, and phrase match. And broad match means if I were to type in buy dance, or if I were to bid on buy dance pants and someone typed buy dance pants in New York, well then my ad would show up. And I don't necessarily want that. So if you're going to do the broad match, make sure you add a lot of negative keywords. And what negative keywords are words that you don't want your ad to show up with if someone types them in. So I might, as a negative keyword, use in New York. So if someone were to type in buy dance pants in New York and I had that as a negative keyword, my ad wouldn't show up because I don't want to advertise to those people because they're probably looking for a local company. Now, phrase match is basically saying that it needs to be the phrase buy dance pants, but then there can be any junk after that. So once again, you want to use negative keywords. And then last, exact match. An exact match means only people that type in exactly what I have for these keywords. So only people that type in buy dance pants, nothing more, nothing less, exactly in this order. So when you're first starting out, I recommend exact match. And if you're gonna do broad match or phrase match, make sure you find a lot of negative keywords.
Yeah, or you're gonna waste a lot of money, which Google wants you to do. And I think the default is broad match, so they
Yes.
can spend a bunch of your ad money on
Make sure
things
to
that don't really matter.
Yeah, cap it off. Make sure you tell Google, I'm only willing to spend $5 a day. And when you're starting out, I recommend personally spending $5 a day because chances are you can find keywords that people are looking for that are extremely specific. For instance, like with me, the buy ivory dance pants. If I had, let's say, 100 similar type keywords that are very, very specific, then I'm for sure I might spend only $5 a day, but that's definitely going to turn a profit. So look for those up front,
Yeah,
which kind of brings us into product listing ads. And have you used these?
I have it set up, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
Oh, you're killing
So
me.
yeah,
For people that don't know too, I recently gave an hour-long talk about paid marketing, and so I wrote out this whole thing. And by the end of it, I was really telling people if you're not doing paid marketing, you're not serious about your business because there's so many different avenues, and $5 a day, literally less than a Chipotle burrito, less than about the same price as a coffee, you can start getting highly qualified traffic to your website. So I'm going to talk about product listing ads, or do you want to explain product listing ads?
yeah. Basically, so when you type a product into like Google, if Google has it in the database, in Google Shopping, it'll show up as a picture, and then you can say, "Oh, you can buy it from bdancer.com or Amazon.com or things like that." And it's basically above the search results, right under the search bar, where it shows up as a picture. And basically, you can bid for spots as your product is on there. So I think it comes down to a couple of things. One, do people actually know what your brand is? If you're a new brand, it actually kind of doesn't make sense because no one's searching for you anyways. So you might want to look into like blogging or YouTube or things like that. Whereas if you're selling like say something's pretty standard like Samsonite suitcase of like a certain model number, then you can bid for that, I think too. So that's why I didn't do it because no one's really searching for the brand. And if they
I
search for it, I'm the top result too.
Sure. Okay. So I'll agree with you. It's maybe I guess a better way to explain it is if you're trying to fill a need rather than trying to be a brand. So if you're trying to fill a need and the need is people that want colors dance pants, then it makes sense to do it. Or if the need is, for instance, with the example I gave earlier, the nut butter type thing, people that are like, where can I buy cashew butter? It makes sense to spend it because they're looking to fix a problem that they have. Their problem is not having cashew butter. Now, if you're Gucci, it probably doesn't make sense to do AdWords for purses because people that are typing in buy a purse now aren't necessarily looking for Gucci. So yeah, that is a very good point, you know.
Yeah, and if they were going to Gucci, they would just go to your site, right? So it's
Sure.
kind of a different play on that too. But I think it depends on what you're going to start and what you're offering to, and how your product matches with the intent that people are searching for too. So certainly you can rank for more generic terms, like say Gucci, you can try to bid for like, expensive handbag or something like that, right? Or best handbag for wife or something like that. But like in terms of like the impact, it's not as big as if you had something more kind of a need like Travis was talking about.
Yeah, but I will actually, so something I did just think about is one of the reasons I do really recommend doing the paid ads is you get to see how right off the bat how people interact with your website. So I'm not saying that necessarily for you you're crazy for not doing it, but I kind of am. I kind of
Yeah.
think that it would make a lot of sense because it kind of goes back to the psychology we were talking about earlier. If you're spending $5 a day, first off, you're gonna pick the best AdWords, best Facebook ad demographic, best whatever. You're really gonna do that work, but then on top of it, you're you need to think about how does my website look, and if you run into a problem, you're going to try to fix that right away because you're spending a ton of money, so you're going to want to fix it. And I actually just really quickly want to expand on what you talked about with product listing ads. And for people, you've seen these product listing ads, they, like Terry said, they have an image but they also have a price under it. So if you were to type in let's use the cashew butter example. If you were to type in cashew butter into Google, it'll probably show the AdWords ads, which are the text ads that look like, they could be a website, but then it'll also show you pictures with a price underneath it. Those are the product listing ads, and those are extremely powerful because people that are going to click on those, and you pay per click. And I don't know if we mentioned that. It's the same thing with AdWords. You pay
Mhm.
every time someone clicks. So people that are going to click on a picture of an item that they searched for with a price underneath it are really highly qualified. They're probably likely to buy. And I find a much, much higher conversion rate with um, my products on
Yeah.
product listing ads.
Yeah. So there's different ways to kind of get in front of people through the paid method, essentially, too.
Yeah, and one more point I do want to throw in is so Terry, some keywords I thought about while sitting here, and I'm sure you have reasons you haven't used them, or something like uh, high-end wallets or stuff like that. You can even if you are a brand, there probably are keywords out there that are like high-end leather wallets. So that's something like pretty specific. Buy high-end leather wallets or buy wallets for or passports holders, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
There's probably stuff, and I think when you make that mindset shift into saying I'm gonna spend $5 a day on paid ads, you start to think a little bit more about like what are these keywords that are so specific that people are gonna see my website and be like, holy crap, this is exactly what I wanted. And if there's no keywords for that, then maybe your product isn't is
Popular as you thought it
yeah,
would.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, fair enough. But everything on the Kickstarter now, so I'm putting the
Okay.
focus on that.
Oh, you're shifting gears on me.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else you want to add for the new person out there that's trying to start an online business?
I think starting out, if you just listen to this whole thing, it's probably a little overwhelming. So I would say go back and just do the first steps, like getting your domain, talking to people, and trying to get people to give you money. Because I think if you can get the money part, the rest of this will figure itself out
Yeah,
overall.
absolutely. And I've
Yeah.
listened to a lot of different information products that say something similar like that, where it's like, these are things that you pay for, obviously, so it's different than a free podcast. But
Yeah.
basically, what it is they tell you at the end, you're going to not understand the last parts here. You're going to have to go through it again. And it's true. The second time through it, I'm like, oh, okay. I only heard about the first part. And now it's like, the second time through, the rest of it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and
And
the reason is as we learn, our brain only absorbs like I think 10, 15% of the information that we see on a daily basis. So it's like repetition is the mother of skill, right? So you got to go through back with this again. But I think overall, like what we talked about, like number one thing is like talk to your customers, talk to your customers, talk to your customers, and that should trump everything because that'll really set you in the right direction, whatever you do. Whether that's through free marketing, paid marketing, finding products, Kickstarter, that you'll get the best data talking to customers and getting them to give you money.
yeah.
So
And I'll add to that. I think my number one tip for someone is just do it. just take that first step, because you know what, once again, and we've kind of reiterated this a couple times, if you can't write down one idea a day, if you can't buy a domain, if you can't, you're not serious about it, just stop pretending to be.
Yeah, and if you're interested in it and not committed, what you'll do is you'll listen to this, you'll turn it off, and then you'll forget about it. And that means you're not really committed to actually starting this business or changing your life. So I think decide that mentally first, and nothing's wrong with that. If you don't want to do this, that's certainly fine. But you should be realistic with yourself in terms of your goals and what you actually are willing to put into on a daily basis. Like, are you willing to not go out with friends 3 months and not go to any dinners to work on this? That's something you got to ask yourself too. So,
and another thing is, I find that a lot of people, they want to do that. They want to say, all right, from this point on, I'm gonna completely change my life, and that's great to have that commitment. But I find that a lot of times for New Year's resolutions, with the new year coming up, people will do stuff like that. They're like, all right, this next year I'm gonna work out 6 times a day, and I'm gonna eat super healthy. You know what? You don't always have to do that. Yeah, I mean, well, that too. Yeah. Sure, just do it. But a lot of times people fail because they have this mindset of they go from absolutely nothing to trying to be like the biggest thing that they can possibly do. It's okay to take small steps, but just make sure you're always going forward. Write that one. If you don't have an idea and this inspired you, write down one idea today, right after this podcast. It could be the stupidest thing you've ever heard of. It could be sell turtles for racing. Doesn't matter. The ideas don't have to be perfect. Just write something down. And if you have an idea, buy that domain name. And if you've already got the domain name, set up the shop. And if you've set up the shop, make a list of people you can call. So if you're serious about this, right after this, take a tiny step to go a little bit further in your business. And if you're not serious, don't do it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah. And I think one thing to remember is that if you want to make $5,000, you got to make $1,000 first. If you want to make $1,000, you got to make 500 first. If you want to make 500, you got to make 100 first. If you want to make 100, you got to make $1 first. So figure out how to make your first dollar.
Great ad. All right, Terry. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. And remember, we're at buildmyonlinestore.com if you want to hear more about e-commerce and what we talk about here. We kind of go into more detail, but we do have some content for someone starting out too that you can find also on the website or podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, great plug. I love. That's how actually I got involved. That's how I got my business to the next level, was basically your podcast. So I wanted to give you a really solid thank you, not only for helping my business along, but also getting me more involved in podcasting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Honored to have you, and we'll see you around.
Peace. All right.
Peace. All right, I'll stop recording.
Yeah. Cool.
This file's going to be fucking huge. Holy shit.
Yeah. I also did a screen recording file, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, those are really big. Make sure you check me and Terry out at the Build My Online Store podcast. I have the link in the show notes, or you can just go to buildmyonlinestore.com. Of course, iTunes and Stitcher as well. So that's this first segment. The next segment, like I said, is going to be how to make your first $100,000 with Andrew from E-Commerce Fuel. And he has a podcast too. It's a very knowledge-packed hour of information that'll hopefully take your smaller business and make it a little bit bigger. And like I said, the one after that will be with Eric from Beard Brand, and he's been extremely successful. He's a really smart and awesome guy, so make sure you tune into that episode. It'll be 2 weeks from now. Now, as promised, here's the story about Andrew Carnegie. It's a true rags to riches, American dream type story. So here we go. This American industrialist, the founder of Carnegie Steel, a company that produced more steel than all of Great Britain at one point, was born to a poor handloom weaver in Scotland. He grew up in poverty, living in a one-room house, often sleeping to quote-unquote forget the misery of hunger. To fight starvation, his family migrated to the U.S. His first job was at age 13 as a bobbin boy, changing spools of thread in a cotton mill 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in Pittsburgh, in a Pittsburgh cotton factory. In his spare time, he would read works of Robert Burns and historical Scottish heroes like Robert the Bruce, William Wallace, and Rob Roy. His next job was a telegraph messenger boy. A true entrepreneur, he was a hard worker and soon was promoted as an operator. Colin James Anderson, who opened his personal library of 400 volumes to working boys each Saturday night, gave a good boost to Carnegie's education and passion for reading. He did a series of railroad jobs, There, he learned about the industry and business in general. It was during this stint that he began making investments in steel and oil companies that earned him huge returns. By 1889, Carnegie Steel Corporation was the largest of its kind in the world. He went on to become the richest man in the world, known as one of the builders of America who helped shape the nation. In 1901, he sold Carnegie Steel to J.P. Morgan for $480 million and became a philanthropist. He donated millions to the New York Public Library, established the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, which is known as Carnegie Mellon today, and created the Carnegie Foundation for the advancement of teaching and formed the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. After that story, hopefully you have a little bit of inspiration and realize that this person who really, his back was against the wall, he used to go to sleep to forget how much pain he was in because of hunger. He was able to create this multi-million, which today's value would be multi-billion-dollar industry. So there's really no excuse why you can't go out there and do whatever your dream is, whatever you're really trying to do. There's no excuse. I hope you take that story, use it as some motivation, and go do something cool this week. And I'll see you next Monday, every Monday with a new episode. So until next week. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter, and I release a new video every Monday, and by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it. Subscribe. Like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.